April 1943. Atlantic convoys are burning. German U-boats slip beneath the waves faster than bombers can adjust their aim. Depth charges fall too late, too wide, too shallow. Pilots lean forward in their cockpits, squinting through oil-streaked glass, calculating angles their minds cannot hold. A quarter-mile gap between where a bomber sees the target and where the weapon must fall. Mathematics moving at 200 miles per hour. And then a young man in a Suffolk hangar bends a scrap of wire with his hands. The Atlantic is a graveyard measured in tonnage and time. Every week, merchant ships slide beneath black water, their hulls split open by torpedoes launched from submarines that surface, strike, and vanish before aircraft can respond. Allied bombers patrol the shipping lanes in endless sweeps, Sunderlands and Liberators, Catalinas with their fat bellies and slow, patient engines. They carry depth charges slung beneath their wings, but carrying a weapon and placing it accurately are different problems entirely. The science is unforgiving. A bomber approaching at low altitude sees the submarine ahead, but by the time the pilot decides to release, the aircraft has already moved. The bomb falls in an arc, dragged forward by momentum and pulled down by gravity. Wind speed, aircraft speed, altitude, angle of approach, every variable compounds the error. Most depth charges land 30 to 50 yards off target. At that distance, a U-boat's pressure hull laughs at the shockwave. Coastal Command keeps meticulous records. They know the kill rate. They know how many attacks result in nothing but white foam and wasted ordnance. Bombing from 500 feet, the average circular error is over 60 feet. U-boats are less than 200 feet long. The math is cruel. Engineers propose bomb sights, mechanical computers that account for speed and wind. But they are heavy, expensive, and slow to manufacture. Training takes weeks. The devices fail in salt air and cold. Coastal Command does not have months to retrain every crew or refit every aircraft. They need something faster, something simpler, but no one knows what that looks like yet. Pilots improvise. Some scratch marks on their windscreens with grease pencils, others memorize timing delays, counting seconds between visual contact and release. It helps marginally, not enough. The U-boats keep sinking ships, the bombers keep missing. The Atlantic remains contested water, dark and indifferent. If this history matters to you, tap like and subscribe. His name is Charles Reginald Finch Noyes, but everyone calls him Reg. He is not a pilot, not an engineer by formal training. He is a flight instructor stationed at RAF Thornaby, then later reassigned to a training unit in Suffolk. Before the war, he worked in agriculture and studied practical mechanics. He understands leverage, angles, and how small adjustments ripple through larger systems. He is methodical, patient, the kind of man who notices when things do not align. Reg flies often, observing student pilots as they practice low-level bombing runs over calm English coastline. He watches them lean forward, eyes straining through the canopy, trying to judge the moment of release. They are guessing. Educated guessing, but guessing nonetheless. He sees the same errors repeat. Early drops, late drops. Bombs that fall into empty water while the target sled drifts untouched 100 feet away. It bothers him, not emotionally, but intellectually. This is a solvable problem. The physics are known. The challenge is not understanding the trajectory. It is giving the pilot a reference point that accounts for it naturally, without calculation, without hesitation. Reg begins sketching in notebooks. He draws sight lines, flight paths, angles of depression. He considers how a pilot's eye moves, where it focuses, what it can track while hands are occupied with throttle and stick. The bomb sight solutions being developed elsewhere are too complex. They require the pilot to look down, to adjust dials, to split attention. Reg wants something the pilot can see without looking away from the target, something intuitive. He thinks about gun sights, about how riflemen use iron sights to align barrel and target in a single visual plane. A front post and a rear notch. The eye does the rest. Could the same principle work for a bomb falling through three-dimensional space? Could a fixed reference, placed at the correct position in the pilot's field of view, provide the necessary offset? The idea is elegant, but theory and practice are separated by wind, vibration, and the chaos of combat. Reg knows the only way to test it is to build it. So he does, not with funding or approval, with wire. The problem Coastal Command faces is not secret. It is discussed in briefing rooms and technical reports. Analysts calculate that increasing depth charge accuracy by even 15% would double the U-boat kill rate. 15%. That margin is the difference between a submarine limping home and a submarine sinking with all hands. But how do you give a pilot, traveling at 200 knots and 300 feet, the ability to judge a release point with that precision? Bomb sights exist. The Mark XIV, used by Bomber Command, is a sophisticated device. It uses gyroscopes, airspeed inputs, and altitude data to compute a release point. But it weighs over 50 pounds and requires stable, level flight at higher altitudes. Coastal Command aircraft attack at wave-top height, often in violent maneuvering to evade flak. The Mark XIV is useless in that environment. Some suggest radar ranging. Experimental sets are being developed that can measure distance to a surface target. But the technology is nascent, bulky, and unreliable over water. It will be years before it is practical for frontline use. Others propose training. Hundreds of hours in simulators, drilling pilots until release timing becomes instinct. But Coastal Command is desperate for crews. Training pipelines are already compressed. There is no time to add months of precision bombing practice. They need a solution that works now with the pilots they have in the aircraft already flying. The Admiralty pushes for more patrols, more aircraft, more depth charges. The logic is sound. If you cannot increase accuracy, increase volume. But resources are finite. Every bomber over the Atlantic is one fewer over Germany. Every depth charge used in a miss is one not available for the next contact. Quantity alone will not win this fight. Meanwhile, U-boat tactics evolve. Commanders learn to crash dive faster. They rig their boats for silent running, hugging the thermocline where sonar loses resolution. They travel in packs, coordinating attacks to overwhelm escorts. The window for a successful bombing run narrows. A pilot might have 30 seconds from visual contact to weapon release, 30 seconds to judge speed, angle, wind, and the submarine's possible evasive maneuver. It is too much to ask of human reaction time, yet it is asked every day over cold water. The experts know what is needed. They cannot build it fast enough, and so the convoys burn and the bombers circle, and the gap between seeing and hitting remains unbridged. Reg bends a loop of wire in his hands. Thin gauge, stiff enough to hold shape, but light enough not to interfere with the canopy's structure. He estimates the angle based on typical attack profiles: 300 feet altitude, 200 knots airspeed, a target moving at 10 knots. The bomb's trajectory will carry it forward in a parabolic arc. The pilot must release before the submarine appears to pass beneath the nose. But how much before? Reggie calculates the delay. He accounts for the bomb's ballistic curve, the aircraft's forward motion, the time it takes for the release mechanism to function. He arrives at an angle, roughly 11 degrees of depression from the pilot's line of sight to the point of release. If a pilot aligns a visual reference at that angle with the target and releases at the moment of alignment, the bomb should fall close, very close, He twists the wire into a simple loop about the diameter of a wedding ring. He attaches it to the canopy frame with tape and scrap metal brackets, positioning it so that when the pilot looks through it, the loop sits at the calculated angle below the horizon line. The device has no moving parts, no calibration dials. It is geometry made tangible. Reg brings the idea to his commanding officer. The response is polite but dismissive. Coastal Command is already pursuing bomb site development through official channels. Resources are allocated. Committees are evaluating proposals. A bent wire does not fit the procurement process. There is no testing budget for improvised devices. Reg is thanked for his initiative and told to focus on his training duties. He does not argue, but he does not discard the wire loop either. He knows the bureaucracy will take months, perhaps years, to deliver a solution. He also knows pilots are dying now. Ships are sinking now. If the wire works, even marginally, it is worth proving. Not through reports or proposals, through results. Reg waits for an opportunity, a training sortie where he can test the loop without formal approval. A flight where the conditions match operational reality. He needs a target, a weapon, and a pilot willing to try something unorthodox. In wartime, such opportunities arrive more often than peacetime allows. The test happens quietly. No official observers, no film crew. Just Reg, a training aircraft, and a practice bomb fitted with a smoke marker instead of explosives. The target is a floating sled off the Suffolk coast, dragged by a motorboat to simulate a moving submarine. The conditions are moderate: light wind, scattered clouds, visibility good. Ideal for a first attempt. Reggie briefs the pilot, a young officer still learning attack angles. He explains the wire loop mounted just forward of the windscreen. The pilot is to approach at 300 feet, align the bottom edge of the loop with the target, and hold that alignment until the target appears to touch the wire. Then release. No timing count, no mental math, just visual alignment and instinct. The pilot nods. He has tried other methods. None have felt natural. This, at least, is simple. The aircraft climbs, circles, and begins its run. Engine noise rises to a steady roar. The coastline blurs past. Ahead, the target's sled cuts a white wake across gray water. The pilot descends, steadying the nose. He looks through the canopy, finding the wire loop in his peripheral vision. It hovers in space, a small circle of metal against the sky. As the aircraft closes, the pilot adjusts his angle, bringing the loop down toward the target. The sled seems to rise in his vision, growing larger. He resists the urge to release early. He waits. The loop and the target converge. The moment feels wrong, too late, too close, but he trusts the geometry. He presses the release. The practice bomb falls away. The aircraft roars overhead. The pilot banks, craning his neck to see the splash. Reg watches through binoculars from the observer's seat. The bomb hits the water 8 feet ahead of the sled. 8 feet. Close enough that if the bomb had been live, the shockwave would have crushed the target's hull. They make a second pass. This time, the pilot adjusts slightly, compensating for a crosswind Reg had mentioned, but not calculated precisely. The bomb falls 6 feet to the left. Still a kill. A third pass, 4 feet behind. Another kill. Reggie's pulse is steady, but his mind is racing. The wire loop works. Not perfectly, wind and speed variations still matter, but it works within a margin no other method has achieved in training. The pilot is not an ace. He is average, and he has just placed 3 practice bombs within lethal range using a device that weighs less than an ounce. Reg writes a report. He includes the test results, the calculations, and a proposal to trial the loop in operational squadrons. He submits it through channels. This time, the response is different. Someone in Coastal Command's technical branch sees the numbers. 8 feet, 6 feet, 4 feet. They ask for more tests. Reg provides them. Different pilots, different conditions. The results hold. The wire loop, crude as it is, consistently reduces circular error by nearly a third. Approval comes faster than Reg expected. Coastal Command authorizes field trials. Engineers refine the design slightly, better mounting hardware, adjustable positioning, but the core principle remains unchanged. It is still a wire loop. Still simple, still something a ground crew can install in 20 minutes with hand tools. By mid-1943, the loop is being fitted to Coastal Command aircraft across multiple squadrons. Pilots call it the Mark II bomb sight, though it is not a bomb sight in any formal sense. Some call it Finch Noise Ring. Others just call it the loop. The name does not matter. What matters is the hit rate. The data emerges slowly, compiled from mission logs and patrol reports. Coastal Command tracks every depth charge attack, every U-boat sighting, every outcome. Before the wire loop, the average circular error for low-level bombing runs is approximately 62 feet. After widespread adoption of the loop, the error drops to 43 feet, a reduction of 31%. 31% does not sound dramatic. It is not a revolution. It is a refinement. But in the Atlantic, refinements save lives. A depth charge that lands 40 feet from a U-boat's hull can crack seams, shatter gauges, and force the boat to surface. One that lands 60 feet away is a near miss recorded in a logbook and forgotten. The difference is measured in kills per 100 sorties, and those kills translate directly to convoys that reach port intact. U-boat losses increased through late 1943 and into 1944. Many factors contribute: improved radar, longer-range aircraft, better coordination between surface escorts and air patrols. But pilots notice the change in their own effectiveness. Attacks that once felt like gambles now feel achievable. The loop gives them confidence. They know where to release. They trust the geometry. That trust makes them calmer, more precise, more lethal. Submarine commanders notice, too. After-action reports recovered from captured U-boats mention the increasing accuracy of air attacks. Some commanders assume the Allies have developed a new bomb sight or guidance system. They do not know they are being hunted by a loop of wire. The loop spreads beyond Coastal Command. The Royal Navy adopts it for Fleet Air Arm aircraft conducting anti-shipping strikes. The principles are the same: a low-level attack, a moving target, a need for instinctive accuracy. Pilots attacking surface vessels report similar improvements. Bombs and rockets land closer to the waterline, closer to the engine rooms, closer to the magazines. More hits, more kills. Reg Finch Noise does not receive a medal for his contribution. There is no ceremony, no public recognition. His name appears in a few internal memos and technical summaries, but the war moves quickly, and innovations are absorbed into routine without fanfare. He continues his work as an instructor, training the next rotation of pilots, refining techniques, solving smaller problems. But the loop endures. It remains in service long after the war ends, used by air forces that need a simple, reliable method for low-level bombing. Jet aircraft eventually replace propeller-driven bombers, and radar sites replace visual references. But for a critical window in the Atlantic, when the balance hung on a few dozen feet of accuracy, a bent wire made the difference. Decades later, historians sift through wartime records, tallying contributions and crediting inventions. They find Reggie's reports filed among thousands of others. They find the test data, the approvals, the quiet adoption of a device so simple it barely warranted a prototype. They find pilots' letters mentioning the loop, describing how it changed their approach, how it made the chaos of a bombing run feel manageable. Reg himself rarely spoke of it. After the war, he returned to civilian life, working again in fields far removed from aviation. When asked, he described the loop as common sense applied at the right moment. He did not claim genius. He did not inflate its importance. He understood that wars are won by accumulated marginal gains, by 1,000 small improvements compounding into strategic advantage. The loop was one thread in that fabric, but that thread mattered. 31% better accuracy meant dozens of U-boats destroyed instead of damaged. It meant convoys that delivered fuel, food, and ammunition to armies fighting across Europe. It meant sailors who survived torpedo attacks because the submarines hunting them were sunk first. Cause and effect ripple outward, invisible but real. The lesson is not about heroism. Reg did not charge into fire or sacrifice himself for others. The lesson is about noticing, about seeing a problem that everyone acknowledges but no one has simplified, about trusting that the solution does not need to be complex to be effective, about building the thing, testing it, and letting results speak. War demands grand strategy and vast production, but it also rewards the individual who bends wire in a hangar and asks, "What if this works?" Reggie's loop is a reminder that history pivots on small moments of curiosity and defiance, that sometimes the difference between failure and success is not technology or resources, but one person willing to try something the system has not approved yet. The Atlantic does not remember the loop. The ocean has no memory. But the men who flew with it, who saw their bombs fall true, who came home because a U-boat did not, those men carried the knowledge forward. They told their children, their students, their fellow veterans. They said, "We had this thing, just a wire, and it worked. It saved us." And so the wire loop passes into the quiet archive of war, where the unglamorous tools of survival rest beside the medals and the speeches, where a circle of bent metal, no heavier than a letter, holds the weight of lives it never knew it saved.